Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for hopping on and watching this video. My name is Stephanie Corporal, and I am the owner of Marble Wellness, a multi-specialty group therapy practice in St. Louis, Missouri. We are located in Baldwin, for those of you familiar with the area, right down the street from Queenie Park. And today I am here to talk to our therapist, Jake, so you all can have a little bit of a chance to get to know him and then sign up with him for some therapy. So I'm not going to keep talking. I'm going to kick it over to Jake with our starter question. For Jake, how did you become a therapist?
Great starter question. I think like so many other people that end up in this field, it wasn't immediately what I thought I was going to be doing. For the longest time, I thought I was going to be doing something in medicine, like
Okay.
being a doctor or a pharmacist. But after working a little bit in those fields and taking some of the classes in college, it just wasn't the right fit. I had to retake the intro bio class like two or three times, and it just wasn't clicking. Um,
College science will get you.
Oh my gosh, it was brutal. Like I couldn't handle it. And so I was majoring in psychology, and by my junior year I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I talked with one of my professors, and they were the ones that directed me towards like counseling as a profession. And as soon as they mentioned that, it clicked because
Okay.
I'd been in and out of my own therapy since I was in high school. So
Uh-huh.
how I never even thought of it as a career path just completely slipped my mind. But as soon as my professor like brought it to my attention, I was like, this makes so much sense.
Well,
Um,
and if that doesn't almost speak to one of the like best parts about therapy too, is like so many times in just talking about things out loud, the obvious thing is like, oh yeah, like I don't know how I didn't think of that, but thank you so much for helping me think of that. So it's
Totally.
funny that that's one of the pillars of therapy, and that kind of conversation is how you got into therapy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I talked with I had some like family connections of people that
Okay.
they'd gone more the doctoral route rather than
Hmm.
just like your classic LPC or something like that. And so that gave me a lot of like guidance as well, and talked with some other people, looked into programs, and rest really became history as soon as I started diving into it. And like I started my first classes, it was like, this is it. This is what I'm meant to do.
Awesome. Very cool. I'm so glad it like just dropped into place and felt good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about the clients you work with at our practice.
So when it comes to like my ideal client, I think it's kind of a funky question. Because I work with anybody. There's not really a bar or a gate in terms of what I will or will not work with. But as far as like some of my specialties and what it is
Yes.
that I find myself working best with, or the types of clients that come into my office, it's a lot of men, a lot of like men's mental health and men's
Yep.
issues. Anger management comes up a lot, especially because, I had my own issues with anger growing up and stuff like that. And so it's something that I've always kind of felt drawn to help
Sure.
just learn how to navigate that. Um, Couples counseling has been a really big thing for me recently, especially as a newlywed. It's kind of
Yep.
like, I'm navigating and exploring this on two different sides, which is
Sure.
really cool. And then, anxiety, depression, autism, ADHD, all of those things are also really big passions of mine and things that I'm
Yep.
excited to work with.
Yep. And then I also, just because I know who you like to work with, there's also adolescent boys. So
Yeah.
you did talk about men's mental health, but
Yeah.
people
So that
listening might
also
just think
extends down
adults.
to like
So,
teenagers
hmm
and stuff like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, which I think is great because, teenage boys in particular thinking about therapy, there's still so many stereotypes and stigmas we're working to break down.
Yep.
And I think there is an element of working with a male therapist that can be
Yeah.
really helpful in those, for some of those people. And
Yeah.
so it's nice to have that option at our
Yeah.
practice.
It's a unique position that I'm in
Yeah.
being a male therapist because there are so many more female therapists in the
Yes,
field, it seems. And so I really like to take advantage of that opportunity to, for those that do feel more comfortable,
exactly.
a male or something like that, I'm here for that.
Yeah. Now tell us how you work in therapy. So somebody, pulls up on the couch that's a little bit peeking out from behind you on the screen as
Yep.
a couple or as an individual, kind of like what would somebody's experience be of you? How do you like to work with people in therapy? What would that process be like for them?
Yeah. So I consider myself a narrative therapist, which is really just a fancy way of saying I love stories. Stories are the way that we make sense of the world around us
Hmm.
from, way more than just like movies and TV shows and stuff like that. It's like the stories that we tell ourselves, the stories that we hear from other people, the stories that we tell others about what's going on in our lives. And so in a way, I kind of like to play English teacher with those stories and just dive headfirst into like who are the main characters, what are the important themes that seem to be coming up, any like consistent patterns or things of that nature, and like what have past chapters of the story looked like and what do we want future chapters to look like, how do we make that happen. And so in reality, I mean, it can go a lot of different ways.
Hmm.
Journaling and meditation are things that I lean on heavily with a lot of my clients. But I also pay attention to the needs of the client. I'm not so closed-minded as to think that my way is the only way. So
Yep.
if I have somebody come in and I try out those things and it doesn't necessarily work, okay, cool. Let's pivot, shift, try something new. And even if it pushes me outside of my comfort zone a little bit, that's part of what the whole process is about.
Yeah, very cool. I imagine that storytelling piece can be really powerful when it really does shape session after session for a
Oh
little while
yeah.
because, like you said, stories are what we're familiar with and what we respond to, kind of like from our core, even more than we realize.
Yeah.
And so I can imagine the change process by
Oh,
using narrative therapy can be pretty powerful.
yeah. I mean, it's just like, when you have a movie or a TV show
Yep.
that you really, really love and
Yes.
you've seen it so many times over and over again, you really start to get intimately connected with the details of the stories and the characters and things like that. You can really start to dive in deep and learn more about kind of the nuts and bolts of what drives that story. And
Yep.
so it takes a little bit of time in the beginning, it's not something that you can just session 2 or 3 hop in and start doing the
Right.
hard work. But
Right.
once you start to get all of those different pillars established and both myself and whoever I'm working with were like equally familiar with the story, it it opens up so many doors and so many possibilities.
Very cool. I love it. Before we wrap for this video, what is one surprising thing about you or a fun fact that you can share that kind of helps with that like human attachment piece outside of, oh, therapist
Yeah,
on
yeah.
screen piece?
Um, my mom always called me a buffet or buffet of life child. I
Okay.
a little bit of everything. So whether like I'm an Eagle Scout, I've been outdoors and traveled all over the country. I'm super artsy and have tried out a bunch of different like arts and crafts type stuff from like pottery and stained glass to
Uh-huh.
painting, different things like that. I'm a massive nerd. So any kind of like fantasy books or Dungeons and Dragons, video games, stuff like that. I'm just a big dork.
A modern day Da Vinci, modern day Michelangelo.
I guess in a sense, yeah. Hard to toot my own horn in that way, but that's very sweet.
I like buffet of life. That's really cute.
Yeah, yeah, it's
It,
always stuck with me.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with, all of you whenever you're watching this, but with me this afternoon. I appreciate it. And I always like doing these
Absolutely.
videos because I always get a new insight to a team member. So it's really fun for me too. But thank you
Happy to
again,
do it.
all of you watching. Thank you. To work with us, to work with Jake, feel free to reach out by phone. Our phone number is 636-234-3052. You can also reach out to us through our website. We have a contact form, or you can schedule a phone call to avoid some of that back and forth phone tag, and we will get you set up. Um, Jake is a wonderful therapist. We'd be happy to set you up with him if that resonated with you, and we hope to talk to you guys soon. Jake,
Yep.
thank you and take care.
See ya.